The Falklands beaches are loved by almost everyone who visits them. And its rock pools are host to a diverse amount of rare species. That's why for scientists from SAERI, rock pooling is an enjoyable pastime and a way to scout for undiscovered or uncommon marine life. Recently, they were excited to find two sea slugs, the Elysia chlorotica and the Evelyn, the latter sighted only a few times previously in the world.
Yeah, so there's this rock pool at Rockery Bay that we've been familiar with for a couple of years now, and this is where the Elysia sea slug tends to be. Larissa found the Elysia in one spot, so we're just all going flat down on our bellies, looking at it, taking photos of it, getting very excited that we actually found it. And then we just saw this little blue thing crawling around, and we couldn't quite make out what it was at first, but then looking at our footage later on, we realized this is something completely different, and it was very, very exciting indeed. But Larissa had been in touch with Professor Patrick Krug in Los Angeles in California before about the Elysia, so she just sent him a photo of the other blue sea slug that we found, and he got back to us and he was extremely excited about it. And he started doing his own research, going into the archives, and so it turns out that it probably was only discovered in Patagonia near Punta Arenas. In sort of 1948, they collected a couple of specimens from two different locations and they described them about 10 years later. But it looks like it's not been recorded anywhere ever since, so it might possibly only be the third population globally.
The chlorotica, also known as a soulless sea slug, is capable of a remarkable ability. Through a symbiotic relationship with ocean algae, it is able to photosynthesize sunlight to use for energy, as well as consuming carbon from life forms in the ocean. On the other hand, Professor Krug suggests that the Evelyn found in the Falklands could be the missing genetic link between populations in Europe and New Zealand.
He's a specialist on the Slugs, so the particular group that these sea slugs fall into. And yeah, he's offered to describe them for us based on their morphology, but also to look into their genetics, and so from that we can understand the connectivity between the populations.
So here you've got the Elysia sea slug, and you can see how well camouflaged it is, because it just looks like a curled up leaf. But it's got these sort of white iridescent spots, and especially in the sunlight that makes it stand out. And they sort of just slowly crawl along the seafloor looking for food, but then we actually captured the moment when it was sort of opening up its curled leaves, and you can just see that it actually does look like a leaf. It's got these white veins, and it just looks incredibly beautiful in the sunlight.
Yeah, you can really see why it's called the soulless sea slug.
Yeah. So what we've got here is what we call now the Evelyn slug, so that's its translated from its Latin name, and yeah, it just looks completely different. Yeah, and it's got these, what they call the serrata on the back with these white spots on them. They've got sort of a white line around the neck. But they're only about sort of 6 or 7 millimeters long, so they're really, really difficult to spot. When you look at some of the footage that we've got from the rock pools, they're just incredibly diverse. You think, oh, there's just, you know, a few plants growing here and then a few fish swimming around, but actually, once you get your eye on, there's just so much. And if you just, you know, look at a square meter or something and try to describe the biodiversity, it's almost impossible because of a lot of the things in there are still undescribed. Yeah.
It's also a capacity for people, you know, you don't have to be a scientist to look in the rock pools. They're our most accessible marine environments.
And I've been going out rock pooling with my son for about 2.5 years now. We've been doing this intensively, and it's quite amazing what we found out. That we've got a really good list and some really good photos of a lot of things. So it's like something for everybody, especially with families and kids. Yeah.